Wow, what a throwback to this document going all the way back to roughly 2018. Ripple, transforming global payments, enabling the internet of value. You might be saying, what the hell? Why are we looking at a document from 2018, Nick? Well, the reason why is because this vision is still in play today. This is enabling the world to move money like information moves today. And of course, yes, crypto is right at the center of all of this. Now, again, that doesn't really answer the question on why I'm bringing this back up, but the reason why I'm bringing this back up is because, of course, when we look at the full breakdown here in terms of the case studies and everything that's happening within this, we look at the power of XRP. Specifically, we look at this image here, the future expanding reach using a digital asset, aka that global bridge currency. XRP can 100% be that digital asset. Now, does that mean that XRP has to move every single dollar in the system and it's going to move, hundreds of trillions of dollars every single day? No. But it does mean that digital assets are going to be the new rails of this new financial system. And yes, XRP will most likely see a very significant amount of that volume. The way that I look at this is the bridging side of things, the use case, bridging fiats to solve for liquidity. Financial institutions exchange fiat for XRP. XRP is then transferred, and then XRP is exchanged for local fiat. This is that bridge currency use case. And you can see it happen in real time here. This is exactly how it works through Ripple's XRapid, which is now Ripple Payments. Now, this was the original payment flow. This is exactly how it works. XRP exposure time is about 90 seconds. So again, we know that XRP can be utilized, one single XRP can be utilized multiple times, but the exposure time is about 90 seconds. If you see volume and value increasing significantly where XRP is demanded in a large way, then yes, that will lead to XRP going up in value, and I do believe that it will. But the main thing that I'm looking at here is the Bank of England Accelerator Program, because that is atomic settlement. That is solving for atomic settlement. Now, when we think about that, we look at the full breakdown here where we have atomic transaction across multiple interledger protocol ledgers guarantees certainty of settlement. That's the focus that I'm looking at here because, again, atomic settlement is the key thing that every single big player is mentioning to us about solving. We go to this video here. Big shout out to Subjective Views. This is from January 13th. Crypto blockchain technology is removing delays and trapped capital for large-scale value transfers. This is Ryan Rugg, Global Head of Digital Assets at Citi, and you're going to understand exactly why atomic settlement and why I brought up those documents is very important. Check it out.
What are the use cases where you see adoption and scale, the green shoots really starting to pop?
Yeah, one of the green shoots is definitely around this 24/7, 365 frictionless movement of money and liquidity. That was where, I started my journey at Citi, right? Really kind of thinking about that pain point that our clients gave us. It's like, why during holidays, why do we have banking cutoffs? I want to be able to move money frictionlessly across the globe. And, we have 90 plus branches. So we've really been focused on that pain point. How do you create the frictionless movement, no latency, no legacy, where traditionally our multinationals have to forecast, right? They forecast, they have to send money to multiple branches because, if it's 5 p.m. in New York on Friday, that means it's 5 a.m. in Singapore. So you'd have to have the money at the branch before it closes.
And again, when we hear these types of conversations coming from Citi, it's very clear on where we're headed. But that word, right? When we think about what's really happening here, trapped capital, right? When we hear those words, trapped capital, it reminds me of the OG days of XRP because, again, that was XRP's main bread and butter. That was like the main use case for XRP is unlocking that trapped capital is $27 trillion in notional accounts. And that's where we start to really kind of see the value of XRP, even when we look at the value movement here, because all of this is to essentially free up that trapped capital. That's when we look at the case studies and we look at this one breakdown, that notional liquidity, it makes up 34% of the payment friction. That's exactly what Ryan Rugg is talking about here. when she's mentioning that, yes, we can clear up the trapped capital and remove the delays. It goes back to the Ripple proof of concept with the Bank of England, where we solved for atomic settlement using XRP. We witnessed the speed and the efficiency of cross-border payments when tapping into digital assets. And yes, XRP was utilized within this breakdown. I don't think people understand why, we still bring up this old document or these, old PDF files as well. It's because it's still so crucial today to study these breakdowns because, again, these issues are still there today. The traditional system did not update in the last couple years. But this takes me to this post as well from Reese Merrick, because building on top of what Ryan is saying from Citi, Reese Merrick just made a post back in November regarding for years how fintechs have been racing to build global rails to avoid the correspondent banking network. Because again, the result here is still the fact that we rely on hundreds of banking partners, thousands of nostril accounts, and billions, I would argue trillions of dollars of trapped capital sitting idle just to pre-fund settlement. We need to shift things into overdrive around this new system. And that's where we look at stablecoins changing the game. One global liquidity poll. Yes, XRP is still utilized even with stablecoins. I'm so tired of answering these questions about, is a stablecoin going to replace XRP? No, absolutely not. In fact, a stablecoin reinforces the use case of XRP because just like back in this presentation where you have a digital asset at the center point, you still need a digital asset at the center point if we're going to have stablecoins in all of these different currencies, which we 100% will. So again, the facts here are still there for stablecoins. It's just that you still need a neutral bridge currency. You still need a digital asset at the center. But also the significance of Ryan Rugg is we go back to 2023. And you might say, well, this is way too old. Guys, we're still only going back roughly 3 years ago. This is still very new in the world of finance. New rails to new worlds, building inclusive, innovative infrastructures for global payments. You had the head of payment products at Ripple, the head of digital assets at Citi, and also the head of payments at Swift, all regarding new cross-border payments infrastructure, the next-gen cross-border payments infrastructure. By the way, all three of these players have a seat at the table with the BIS's CPMI group, which is also working on improving cross-border payments to meet the G20 targets for cross-border payments. And again, you have that ISO 20022 update. If you guys watched my recent video regarding Swift, then you know that ISO 20022 enables interoperability between traditional systems and blockchain-based systems. But I'm bringing this back up as well because at Ripple Swell, you had Ryan Rugg talking about how the Citi, how their tokenization efforts and where blockchain take part. We view this as a new set of rails. Scott posted from All in Crypto. Yeah, this is the new rails. Blockchain is the new rails. Check it out.
So our strategy is really three-pronged: build, buy, partner. And, if you think about the build, we've been building what's called Citi Token Service the last couple of years, where we've really started to scale over the last year. And really what we're trying to solve for is real-time liquidity and payments, that 24/7, 365, instant movement of money across borders. So we're live in US, UK, Hong Kong, and Singapore. We strategically targeted our largest money hubs that have the most amount of friction. We're adding additional currencies and markets later this year, as well as, partnering. Partnering is really important. I've been in this space a decade. There's a lot of great technologies out there and companies out there. We recently announced our partnership with Coinbase, which I think is really important. So, we view this as a new set of rails. And if our institutional clients want to be able to have access to this market, we want to do it through, building as well as partnerships and in investing. We're a very active investor in this space as well. We invested in BVNK, and we'll continue to do that to support this ecosystem.
I kind of want to hear how you do it, because a person in your seat, you have to start by being the crypto person over there, right? When everybody's saying no, and people or the customer voice isn't loud enough to actually change things, especially at a super tanker like Citi. But now I hear Citi, right? I see a lot of announcements, hearing a lot of outreach.
Definitely not one voice. It takes a village.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely takes a village, where I work extremely closely internally with risk, compliance, legal, all the various facets, but also externally, with our regulators like in this space. So I've taken a very collaborative approach where we do a massive amount of education internally as well as externally, because as you said, like, it's an innovator's dilemma, right, with this technology, but viewing it as a new set of rails. And if our clients want to use these, we need to be able to build up these services for our clients. And like, that's how we're viewing it and taking a very collaborative approach with the industry, but also because like clients don't want just a Citi token, right? Like that, and nor do we need a blockchain for a purely Citi token. But from day one, our strategy has always been like network driven.
So yeah, I mean, listen, when we think about what she just said there, she essentially said that a Citi token, like, we don't want to, tap into, a JPM coin. We don't want a Citi coin. Just like Ali G is saying over here, like, interoperability is the key. Banks don't want a JPM coin. They don't want a Citi coin. They want cross-bank, cross-border liquidity. Ryan Rugg is on top of this. Even JP Morgan admits it. At a BIS summit in 2024, this is from Project Onyx with Umar Farouk, JP Morgan made it clear the real bottleneck is shared liquidity and atomic settlement across institutions. Guys, we think about atomic settlement. We go back to the real proof of concept with Ripple back in 2017, where they already solved this using blockchain, using XRP. Listen closely to what they are saying here. That's not solved with another closed system. It's solved with interoperable rails like XRP Ledger, which G Treasury, acquired by Ripple, is now bringing into play through its JP Morgan partnership. Check it out.
If you really think about, let's say JP Morgan and Bank of America both had the equivalent of, we had JPM coin and Bank of America had, Bank of America coin. I'm just making it up. To settle those two is actually a real complicated endeavor without having either a real-time ledger at the back, wholesale CBDC at the back, or a 24/7 RTGS system.
I said, so is Morgan Stanley going to use the JPM coin? Probably not. And so, well, is Citi going to use a JPM coin? Is B of A going to use a JPM coin? Is PNC? And the answer is no. If you're just moving it within the JPM ledger, and it has to be dollar to dollar, a one-to-one backing, it honestly doesn't actually, I don't understand what problem that solves.
It's great that we have this internal token, but our clients don't want a Citi token or another bank token. What they want is cross-bank, cross-border liquidity.
If you really think about,
And yes, that's exactly what they're trying to solve for. And the craziest thing is the common overall conversation here between all these big banks. Like, I don't think people realize how ahead of the game Ripple really is using XRP. Like, this is a proof of concept from 2017. We're nearly 10 years later, and every single bank is telling you atomic settlement. Screw all the stablecoins. We don't care about any of that. We want cross-chain and we want cross-border liquidity. That's being solved for. Even when we go back to that original conversation with Ryan Rugg, removing delays, trapped capital. Hello, this is not new. Ripple has been focused on this for well over a decade. This is why, and I'll say it again, and I'll constantly say it. Ripple is in a different league. They are playing a different game. You've heard checkers and chess, right? Yeah. Ripple has been playing chess for a very long time. All these other companies in the space are starting to play checkers. No. Ripple is so on top of all of this. This is why I always say, like, yeah, XRP was called the banker's coin initially. Hey, I look at that as a compliment. When Ripple has been working with institutional players for well over a decade and everyone said, oh, Ripple is bad for the game because they're, tapping into institutional players and working with banks. All of a sudden now they're all embracing banks. I say, again, that was all compliments back in the day. Today, all of that is so valuable because Ripple, along with XRP, is viewed by these institutional players as trusted technology because they were so used to it even back then. And today, that's more and more reinforced than ever before. This is a very big deal. And these conversations only reinforce the original use case. Even when we think about stablecoins, it all reinforces the original use case, this use case specifically. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video.